class. Welcome to another week here at Beetle University. I'm the guy they call Professor Moptop. This week you're going to be getting 4 hunks of audio in your email. It's going to be 2 songs and the review from the Revolver unit. The first song up is the last song that we've dealt with from the Revolver album. In the past, the Beatles had a couple of characters, or at least by 1966, they had Nowhere Man, and then there was a paperback writer and a tax man, and then they came with Dr. Robert. Now, allegedly, this is partially maybe kind of based on a real-life guy named Charles Roberts. Maybe. Apparently, this guy was a New York doctor who was real liberal with his subscription writing, and this is where celebrities would be able to get the good stuff back in the day. It might be completely made up. It might just be a code word for the guy who was the drug dealer for the Beatles. There's a whole lot of question about it. One thing we do know for sure is it's most likely all a John song. The Paul contribution, if any, might be the Feeling Fine part in the middle. They started it on April 16th, and it's John and George playing guitars, Paul playing the bass, and Ringo playing the drums. This was something that they didn't do a whole lot of during the Revolver sessions because there was so many unusual overdubs, and then they would just play 2 instruments, and they would add more and add more. What is really interesting about this is the 3 singing Beatles, John, Paul, and George, all sang together, and they recorded this live, all while standing around the same microphone. And then ADT, artificial double tracking, was applied to that. There's a harmonium in the song, probably played by John, and Dr. Robert was recorded, put on the album, and never performed live. In fact, none of the songs on the Revolver album were performed live. Now, Dr. Robert isn't on the United States version of Revolver, which only has 11 tracks. It is on Yesterday and Today, which came out a few months before Revolver came out in the United States. The piece of audio you're going to get all about the Revolver wrap-up is pretty interesting. There's a lot of things about that, such as the Yesterday and Today album, which songs weren't on the U.S. version of Revolver, and which songs were on the Yesterday and Today album, and where they came from. There's a lot of interesting subject matter on the Revolver album, such as Yellow Submarines, the loss of a relationship, the death of a lady who is a spinstress at a church, there's taxes, there's all kinds of unloved type songs, as well as a couple of love songs on the Revolver album. There's also Beatle people, like The Man Who Sailed the Sea, there's The Girl Who Knows What It's Like to Be Dead in the song. There's a lot of cool experimentation on Revolver. And Professor Moptop talks a little bit on the audio about some of the microphone innovation as well. Moving ahead is a real-life thing. It is Martha, and the song is Martha, My Dear, from the White Album. It was Paul's first ever pet. When he first bought his own house, he got this little puppy, Martha, My Dear, who was an English sheepdog, and Paul never had a pet before. And John Lennon was just amazed at the amount of love that Paul showed towards Martha, My Dear. Now, as I discuss in the audio that you'll get, Martha possibly was born on June 16th of 1966. That is, of course, unconfirmed. It's likely that Paul made a demo of the song and then immediately gave it to George Martin. Whatever became of this piece of audio, no one in the world knows. If it even existed in the first place, there's a whole lot of ifs. It might have been taped over. It might still be in the back of a closet somewhere. No one really knows for sure. Now, Paul McCartney played the piano and then added the drums and added the guide vocal on the song. And then session guys came in for the night. First, one group of guys came in and recorded for Honey Pie, and then a bunch of different guys came in to record for Martha, My Dear. There's violas and violins, a cello, a trumpet, a flugelhorn, a trombone, a tuba, and a French horn. Now, these guys were a little bit iffy of the Beatles when they were playing on some of the early tracks, but by 1966, some of these guys had been on 3 or 4 Beatles songs, and by the time 1968 rolled around, they had gotten to be pretty comfortable around George Martin and Paul McCartney, who were real professional. They were very successful, and these guys would collaborate really, really well with them, especially for a song like Martha, My Dear, which is trying to sound like an old song. A lot of these classically trained guys also grew up on the same music that Paul McCartney, as well as George Martin, really loved. There was a few more overdubs, all from Paul, which means the song is likely 100% Paul McCartney, even though it's on the White Album, and no other Beatle contributes. There's a lot written into it. Is it about his former love interest Jane Asher, who was frequently his inspiration, but it's all simply about a sweet, cuddly dog that Paul McCartney owned named Martha. It's one of the lighter songs on an album that has a lot of dark and cool and sort of strange things. This is one of the more palatable to the ear songs. Martha, My Dear, the first song of side 2 on the White Album. And with that, I'm saying so long for another little while. I will talk to you again. As always, thank you a million, trillion, a billion times over. I am Professor Moptop.